Hello, welcome to Toffee TV. It is the match preview, Everton versus Southampton in the Carabao Cup. A tournament that we have won a game in, Jack.
Yeah, the only game we have won this season.
Thank you for pointing that out.
It would be very nice to build on that. And look, I'm sick of coming in here and talking about the need for a response and using this game as a way to get ourselves back on track. But it's where we are, and playing Southampton, who are the only team in the Premier League who've managed to rival us in terms of such poor a start. So let's take advantage of that. And, you know, positive side as well would be to advance in the cup. But the main thing is getting another win on the board.
Yeah. I liked how on Saturday, when Southampton had been beaten by Manchester United and had lost 4 games, they were still higher in the Premier League than we were. And then we just added to that later on in the day. No, both teams haven't won a Premier League game so far. I don't know whether the Southampton manager will be feeling the pressure or he's under pressure. I don't know either of those things, just because the very nature of Southampton as a club. They have a slightly different ethos to us in football style. They want to play it out from the back. They want to get the ball, you know, on the floor and attack them with a little bit of pace. I watched a little bit of Southampton on Saturday, and before they went behind against Manchester United, they did quite well. They obviously won a penalty and then subsequently missed the penalty, but they were doing well. And then when the first goal went in, they just fell apart, literally just fell apart in front of people's eyes. That makes it interesting. Everton, as in the football club, I don't think are panicking quite yet, although the fans might be feeling slightly different. But this is a game, clearly, Everton, like you suggest, Everton have to win this game. They have to get through and they have to add that confidence of a couple of wins. If Everton lose this game, going into that game at Leicester, then the pressure is firmly all on Sean Dyche and it's all on the players to get something, and that's not a pressure we want going into that game. Of course, there's already a pressure going into that game, but we don't want that added pressure. What we want is we want to go in that game with the confidence of having won a game in the Carabao Cup. Maybe some more of those players who have been part of the squad. Maybe it's another opportunity for Lindstrom. Maybe it's the first opportunity for Mangala. Maybe another opportunity for Jake O'Brien to get some game time and hopefully show Sean Dyche what is available to him in the whole squad.
Yeah, I think most importantly, it's an opportunity for relief, isn't it? While we all would love to go far in the Carabao Cup and eventually win it, I think most people are quite realistic about our chances and that, but it'd be nice to advance, obviously, because you never know while you're involved. But the main thing is it's potentially a win against another Premier League side, albeit not in the Premier League. It would be our biggest win of the season so far, undoubtedly. And it's an opportunity to play some players the manager might not be quite so sure on in a slightly lower stakes game. It's an opportunity for the likes of O'Brien to come in, Roman Dixon, who I think needs to be considered now, especially if Mikalenko's not going to be available at the weekend. Lindstrom is the big one for me, because looking at Jack Harrison's performances so far this season, he's not doing all that much on the right-hand side. Lindstrom is an option there. Therefore, he has to be assessed to see what he could potentially give us.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be load like mass changes, but I do think there's an opportunity for the likes of Jake O'Brien, possibly Lindstrom, and possibly Mangala to come in. What are your thoughts on the striking situations for this game? Because obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin has got 2 and 2. I know we should have more. I appreciate he should have more. But do you think this is a game where you bring Beto into it, knowing that you're just playing Beto to give him a game, rather than building on what Dom's done so far this season?
He's not shown enough Beto for me over his limited. Obviously, he played against Doncaster, and he did all right against Doncaster. It came on against Bournemouth, and just stylistically, he looked all wrong for us. It's difficult with Dom because he does only have 2 goals, but it's 2 more than Beto. He has been vastly superior to Beto so far this season, although Beto has had far less minutes. But he's I don't want to say he's been a shining light for us, Dom, because he's had opportunities to score and he hasn't. But he's got 2 goals for us in a team that isn't blessed with attacking talent, and we do need him available for the weekend. We know his injury history, so I'd begrudgingly lean towards Beto for this game, really, just for the sake of keeping Dom fit more than anything.
See, I thought Dom looked very, very strong against Villa. I am not in that mindset of protecting Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I'm really not anymore. I think he's proved that if he was to pick up injuries, I think they would be just organic injuries that you'd pick up anyway. I don't see him. I think they've got to the bottom of the injuries that he had over those 2 years, and I'd like to think that they're behind him now. That doesn't mean he won't pick up new injuries or whatever, fatigue or anything, but I think certainly on Saturday I thought he looked very, very strong. I think it's one of his best performances for a while. Yes, the opportunity that he missed to possibly make it 3-1, who knows whether it would have been onside or not. But I thought as an all-round game, I thought he was really strong. I thought he occupied their centre-backs really well. And I'll be honest, Beto for me is not in the same league as Dominic Calvert-Lewin. No. I just don't think... I take your point, I do take your point. I think for almost for Dom... I think for a game like this, I think it's important in general. I think it's important Dominic Calvert-Lewin keeps scoring or has those games, and isn't just a player that we launch the ball to. I think in the last 2 games, I think we've been cuter the way we've got him the ball. Don't get me wrong, he scored off a set piece on Saturday, but I thought even for that opportunity and for the opportunity late on where he hit the bar, we give him those chances by getting it on the floor, playing it in front of him, letting him use his pace. Actually, I thought in both instances, he did really well to get past the centre-backs.
Yeah.
He worked the centre-backs really well. I thought he worked the centre-backs for his goal really well. The goal against Bournemouth, I thought the way he got into the space again was really good. And I think that's how you use Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And for me, I think, personally, we should start him. I just feel like the days of protecting him should be over now, because it's almost like you've had like pretty much a full season. And I know there was a couple of scares last season where we left them out. I just think for me, this is such an important game. Such an important game.
I take all that, and you're not wrong. I certainly wouldn't be annoyed at seeing Dom in the team. For me, it's less about worrying, will he get injured? Because he's always injured. Because you're right, he's been putting the games together. For me, it's more about how would he respond if he does get injured, because we have seen in the past, if he has picked up a knock, it's affected him mentally almost more than physically. And I just think at the moment, if he is one of the few attacking players who is in decent form, you maybe don't want to risk that. But I'd have zero issue with seeing him start, obviously, because he's a potential goal threat and we're quite short on them at the moment.
Yeah. Just going back to Southampton, obviously, they came back to the Premier League 1 season missing. Really good late run. And they got themselves up. I mean, obviously, they're in the same boat as Everton, as we've already mentioned. But what have you made of them as a team and in terms of their recruitment this summer?
They're struggling. And I think they could have done with a little bit more in the summer. I said earlier on the More Than a Game live stream, maybe they would have benefited from another year in the Championship. Obviously, if you've got the opportunity to push for it and go up, you take it, absolutely no arguments. But I just think you've got Russell Martin in there, and say what you want about him as a manager, I'm not all that convinced. But he has got a style in which he wants his teams out to play, which means needing to recruit for that style long term. So it's a different style than what they've been used to. If you look, Hassan Hootel, after him it was Nathan Jones, different stylistically. So they were recruiting for a different style of player. Maybe they would have benefited from having more time bringing players in. Obviously, they're not blessed with riches financially, and they're not the type of team who go and have 70 million net spend windows. They're just not that club. So maybe another year of bringing in players on cheaper transfer fees who can bed in the Championship against lesser opposition and then come into that team and develop into a style of football, and maybe they would have benefited from that. But that's not where they're at. They've came into the Premier League. They've brought in a couple of attackers in terms of they've got attackers who were available to them, like Cameron Archer, obviously, but there's no standout attacking player in there. They've got Armstrong as well, who's had periods in the past where he's got goals, but he's only ever been a purple patch striker. So Yeah, they're not blessed with attacking talent similar to Everton, but the style of football they play will naturally generate them more chances, and that's where they'll hope to make it up, not just against us, but over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think goals are going to be the main problem. I think it's the main problem for every team down there. You're absolutely right. I think you look at their team and they're not blessed. They've got like players who they've got actually a lot of players that you look at and go, do a great job in the Championship, or have done a great job in the Championship. You know, they brought Brendan Diaz in. They've got Armstrong on the bench already. Cameron Archer, who obviously is a player they've brought in, who was at Sheffield United. Let's just have a look at these are his League Cup stats. I mean, fair play, Ned. Played 1, goals 2, shots on target 3. Yeah, there you go. League Cup stats. Thanks, Ned. I mean, he's not someone I would have looked at last season. I mean, I think he did score against us, didn't he, against Sheffield United. He's not the player I would have looked at.
Only goal?
He might have been. I can't really remember him scoring too many more. But he would have been the type. If he's the one you're looking at and think you're going to lead our line, he's got a year of Premier League experience, but he didn't really do anything. Coming from Villa before that, bit of a reputation. I just look at what they've got and think, I don't think. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. We can't exactly talk about the riches Everton have got, but I just don't think they've got that much. And yes, they might have tried to offset that by bringing the likes of Lallana in, and they've already got Bednarak, and I think Ramsdale's a decent signing because he's obviously understood from the first game we need a good goalkeeper, and we're going to be tested massively this year. So obviously that makes sense. But you just look at the goal situation and think you're gonna struggle this season. There's no like one play where you can go, I think he'll score half a dozen.
No, Archer's one for me. The obviously early days at Sheffield United, he playing against Everton, and he scores a really good goal. And prior to that, he'd had a good reputation, like you say, as a youngster, and there was a lot of promise there. He's not really shown it yet, and to be fair, Sheffield United wasn't the best environment to show that in, because they struggled massively last year. They didn't make a load of chances, and they didn't really play football that suited his style. At least at Southampton, they probably are more suited to his abilities as a striker. I think he struggles with his lack of physical presence, especially in the Premier League, and maybe that's just a long-term thing. He's going to need to fill out a little bit more and get better back to goal. But in terms of his technical ability, there is something there. He's just not been able to show it yet. And while he obviously doesn't have the best goal-scoring records, he's scored well in the Cup, obviously, but over the last season, the Premier League, he's not had the goals. I do think there is a bit of ability there.
It's always hard to say, isn't it? Because when teams come up, and obviously there's different ways of doing things, teams will go out and spend money on sort of Premier League proven players in many ways. And then some might just spend money on almost like future-proofing it, where they go, well, we'll buy a few, and if we go down, these are good Championship players to bring us back. I think that's what Sheffield United did last year. Luton, they sort of did something similar. They got some good free transfers. So I certainly wouldn't write any team off who comes up. I think the first few games are a massive learning curve. I think last season, Luton, last season, what they did is they used their first few games as like a barometer, and then they looked at it and said, right, what do we need to change? I think Luton tried to almost go really tight last season in the first few games, and then went, no, the best way we can do things is almost go basketball, we'll score, you'll score, and we hope to outscore you. In the end, it wasn't good enough, but it did scare a lot of teams. And it did leave us thinking for a while, these could be a threat. They just run out of steam when the quality and the injuries and everything else caught up to them, and maybe the fitness levels over the season. So I certainly wouldn't say to any, they've lost the first 4 games, because we've lost the first 4 games. It'll be interesting to see how they grow through the season, but it is always that problem with the goal scoring. One thing I would say to you is, do you think they'll make changes for this game? Maybe looking at it, do you think the manager will go, actually, I'm not sure how deep we can go in this competition. It hasn't been a great start. We'll go up there and play some of the players who haven't been involved so far yet, and see how they get on. Maybe hoping or maybe thinking we'll make changes as well. they've got Ipswich at home on Saturday, and that's a game they'll be thinking, we can get something out of that. That's got to be a 3 points for us. Another promoted team against us. So which way do you think they'll go?
Yeah, you're right in everything you're saying there about the Ipswich one's the big one for them and they want to be strong for that. But also everything we said at the start about needing a win, needing to change the narrative, as it were, that applies to Southampton as well, because they've started just as poorly as us. And I think they will rotate, and I don't know if it'll necessarily be Everton's situation where you're rotating but not necessarily hurting the quality. You're bringing in players you've not really seen yet. I think maybe they will field a slightly weaker team just for the sake of staying strong for Ipswich, because that's a massive game for them. But I can't see them going too weak, because it's an opportunity for them to win as well, and against us they do have a chance.
I don't think they'll go too weak. I just think they'll rotate as well. I don't think there's no way on earth there's as much pressure on their manager as there is on our manager. There just isn't. And I think when you look at the players, I think we can rotate a few players. I mean, you know, we've got a player on loan from Napoli, and I'm not saying he's any better than some of the Southampton players, because I've got no evidence, but we know that he's got good back. I think we can rotate a few, maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4 players. I'm not sure they'll get the same quality. I think we will get the same quality, but I just don't think there's as much pressure. I genuinely believe Southampton fans will be looking at this and just be thinking, just don't have players, you know, don't get injured for the game on Saturday. That's the big start of their season, another home game against a promoted team. Whereas I think Everton, you're right, for us, I think we've got to get a win here, because for the manager, if we don't get a win in this game and we're going into that game on Saturday and we get beat, and the only game we've won in 7 games is Doncaster, then I think that's alarm bells ringing. So for me, I think Southampton might take the foot off the pedal a little bit, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think we'll see similar changes for both squads in terms of numbers, but for Everton, it's more players that aren't necessarily a drop-off in quality. They might be, but it's players we don't know about yet. O'Brien, Mangala, Lindstrom, etc. So, yeah, I think we'll overall have the closer to first choice 11 out, and there is more pressure on us with it being at home obviously as well, and it might get a bit nasty for the manager if we don't get through against Southampton. So I think he'll like to avoid that, because it won't be a good look for him. Even if for the Everton boards this isn't a sticking game point, the reaction could force their hand a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. How important is this game for Everton? You know, obviously we need wins. This is one of those games. Certainly as it's against the Premier League team as well, I think it adds that little bit more spice to it. It's another Premier League team. And it's someone who's fighting with us down in the lower part of the league. And I think for Everton, I think it's about making almost an example of them and getting that win and going, actually, we can get a win. I think mentally beating a Premier League team is so important. Let us know your thoughts in the comments on this one. Are you confident? Let us know. First proper night game at Goodison as well. First proper night game of the season. So hopefully it's a full house and everyone's ready to push the players that little bit harder. There you go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want more great videos, join us over on Toffee TV Premier, where we do daily live shows, exclusive shows over there. Link is in the description. QR codes come on the screen now. See you later.